Each of the 8 resolutions is an effort to break people out of a kind of defensive solipsism that I think causes us to feel stagnant over time and to meet each other in a new way. But have real sex, for example. Here's one that I think is where a marriage can be an incredible antidote to some of what is really insidious and malignant in our culture today. I mean, one of the things I'm actually interested in, apart from this book, is the whole notion of what's happening to sexuality in our culture and what's happening to kids sexually, and to what a culture of both explicit and implicit pornography and explicit sexuality that not only is problematic because it's so explicit, but also is problematic because the quality of sexuality that it's conveying is so disconnected and non-emotional. What's that doing to us? Not just to kids, but to all of us. Because I think it's creating an image of sexuality that is increasingly distant and non-emotional. So we all grow up, I think, and live in this culture where we have these images of sexuality that are pornified, where it's about action figures that are all airbrushed doing these incredible things gymnastically for multiple hours a day. And we've come to believe that this is a kind of normative view of sexuality, and then that in turn, whatever we have, which is inevitably going to be more human, is disappointing. And one of the things I'm arguing in the book about sex is that it can be a way between two people who are really willing to be radical about those images and to push them away and to see them for what they are, of finding something that's more real and enlivening. One of the things, as an aside, I think that's happening to kids these days is that sex is such an important thing developmentally. It's not just important in and of itself. It is an important way that we negotiate different life stages. So that if you think about a teenager, the whole negotiation of desire in the face of somebody else's willingness to say yes or no is a really critical negotiation in terms of growing up and respecting somebody else's separate being. When you get older and being able to continue to have a sexual relationship even as your body changes and you're increasingly far from these images of what people are supposed to look like that are around us, is a way to stay alive and in a culture that tells us we're over the hill. All of these things are really important. We're losing the ability to have them in the face of the images that we have in this culture. I think marriage can be an antidote to that if it's done right.
And give up your addictions?
So, yeah. So like we're all rats, right, in a certain way. I mean, we're really elegant rats, and we're incredibly thoughtful, and we're much more complicated, and we have emotions and all these things that differ us from rats. But in a certain way, we're like rats, in that if you give us a pellet, we'll do the same thing again that got that pellet. So, and if you think about life, as time goes on, you develop more and more ways in life that just to get these little, we have our coffees, we have our television, we have our things that have given us short-term pleasures and gratifications. And our lives, if we don't watch it, just simply become increasingly made of the fabric of all of these small habits and addictions. Some of them are large, like drugs and alcohol. Some of them are small, like just sitting in front of the television at night, or but what happens is each one of those things takes out of the picture an opportunity for doing something new or for doing something different. And so when I'm talking about giving up habits and addictions, I'm talking about taking the risk of wiping some of the slate clean of how we live our lives day to day in a relatively safe place and making room for something new.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.